Hi, my name is Zach, and I'll be talking to you and demonstrating the three planes of motion along with the multi-planar movement patterns. So first we talk about the sagittal plane, which splits the body up into the left and right sides of the body. And then we have the frontal plane, which separates the body into the front and back sides, so the anterior and posterior parts of the body. And then the transverse plane, which splits the body into top half and bottom half, so superior and inferior part. Next, we talk about the shoulder girdle. So we have the scapula elevation and depression like this, elevation, depression in the frontal plane, and then we have the scapula abduction and adduction, abduction, adduction, abduction, adduction, and that's in the sagittal plane. Next, we have the upward rotation and downward rotation in the frontal plane, upward, downward, upward, downward. Then we have the shoulder joint or the glenohumeral joint. We have the shoulder flexion and extension. So flexion, extension, flexion, extension, and that is in the sagittal plane. Next we have the the shoulder abduction and adduction. So we have the abduction, adduction, abduction, adduction, and that's in the frontal plane. Next we have the external and internal rotation of the shoulder. So we have our external like this, and then internal, external, internal, and that's in the transverse plane. Next we have our horizontal abduction and adduction. So we have our abduction like this, and then our adduction like this, and that is in the transverse plane. We have our abduction, adduction. Next we have our hip. So we have our hip flexion and extension, flexion, extension, flexion, extension, and that's in the sagittal plane. Then you have our hip abduction and adduction, abduction, adduction, abduction, adduction, and that's in the frontal plane. Next we have our external and internal rotation of the hip, which is in the frontal plane. We have our external rotation like this, and then internal, external, internal. Next we have our knee flexion and extension, so flexion and extension in the sagittal plane, flexion, extension. Then we have our knee external and internal rotation in the transverse plane. So we have our knee external rotation like this, externally, and internal, and external, internal. Last we have the lumbar spine, which is also the lower back in this area. So we have our flexion like this, then we have our extension like this. Flexion, extension in the sagittal plane. Then we have our lateral flexion, which is in the frontal plane. Lay down like this, and like this on the other side. Last we have our lumbar rotation, which is in the transverse plane. So we're starting like this, and twisting like that in the transverse plane. Starting like this, twisting like this. That's the end of my video. Thank you for your attention.